Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Potluck, your everything and anything talk and entertainment TV show. My name is Laura Hartman, and I'm your host. We have an amazing guest joining us who has helped many in the past to get themselves out of crisis and to make a better life. And now she wants to make a bigger impact and run for Loudoun County's Commonwealth Attorney for 2019. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, Buta Biberaj. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm great, I'm great. So before we get into your background of being an attorney and also 15 years of being a temporary judge or a substitute judge, let's talk about what a Loudoun County Commonwealth attorney would be doing, or why is an attorney needed for that position for the county?
Okay. Commonwealth's attorneys are the attorneys that represent the state in criminal prosecutions.
Okay.
They are in a lot of other states called district attorneys, but the more common name is a prosecutor. And what they do is they're the ones who dictate as to what charges get to be filed against somebody.
Sure.
And then what path does that case take. The importance of that is that you want to have somebody who's going to uphold the law and be able to set the community standards as to what prosecution should take place and then what consequences should be imposed upon individuals to be able to make sure that people are compliant with the law and that the community is best served.
Okay, so why would I want to cast a vote for you? Like, what's going to be different between you and somebody that you're running against? Because if the law is the law, how would that, what are you bringing to the table, or what would you do?
Okay, I'm the better person for that position for these very reasons.
Sure.
One is I come from very different perspectives. I come from a very diverse background. I grew up in New York City. I am a first-generation immigrant. I came down to Virginia with the intention of studying the law and then moving back to New York, and I realized when I moved to Loudoun County 25 years ago that Loudoun County was a place that could use the benefit of somebody who cared for the community.
Okay.
I have a business in Loudoun County since 1993. We've done a lot of community service within the community. We've helped families, we've helped children, we've helped businesses. So we've been very well rooted in Loudoun County. That's the perspective that I bring, is from someone who is inside the county versus outside the county. The opponent currently that is running for that position, who has indicated that she's going to run for that position, is Ms. Whitman, who has been a prosecutor in Loudoun County for about 12 years. She is not a resident of Loudoun County, but for working there, she's not as invested in the community as I would suggest that I am.
So so you don't have to be a resident of the county to run for that position?
What you have to do to run for that position, you have to, at the time of petitioning to run, be a resident. So
Okay.
that is a new change in her location.
Okay. So
yes.
she no longer is in the county.
She has never been a resident of Loudoun County.
Okay.
But she is now proposing to be a resident of Loudoun County so that she can run for the position. So,
okay.
yes.
Okay. So is she waiting to do that to announce her position against you?
She has already announced, and the expectation would be that she has made certain indicators to change her address to be one within Loudoun County.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So let's talk about your background, and then let's talk about, are there changes that you can make or help to make, or ideas that you have that will help benefit people of Loudoun County?
Yes. I was and I am an attorney, and I've been there for 25 years.
Okay.
I was a substitute judge for under 12 years. I had the chance to see how the criminal justice system works from those different perspectives.
Okay.
I also was a guardian at Loudoun, which is an attorney who represents the best interests of children.
Okay.
I've helped our community members get petitions of protective orders so that they could make sure that the law is working for them to be able to protect them. So these are things that have allowed me to have a different lens as to what I can do in the position of a Commonwealth's attorney. and that is this, is to look at it from the global perspective as to what are we doing within our community to keep our community safe, and then just as importantly, to make sure that each and every individual can contribute to our community. Prosecuting is easy, and this is what I mean by that. That means that you have to have a victim, you have to have an accused, you have to have law enforcement investigate, you have to have the court system go ahead and go through its process, so a prosecutor has to be involved, a judge, a jury, and all these things. But for me, that is too late. It's almost like healthcare. We don't want to dedicate our services to somebody after they've had cancer, after they've had a heart attack.
Okay.
My proposal is this: let's take care of the looking as to how the criminal justice system works, and what could we do on the forefront to provide services. Keep people out of the criminal justice system. Because if we keep them out of the criminal justice system by changing the school to prison pipeline, and I'll explain a little bit what that is, or redirecting them so that so someone is accused of a nonviolent or low-level offense, that they could actually do something in lieu of being prosecuted and having a conviction, then we allow that person to have the opportunity to be successful in the community. If we prosecute and label somebody as a convicted felon, that hurts our whole community. That means we may be taking people out of their homes so that they can't parent their children. Right. They can't have jobs. They can't support for their families. They can't support for themselves. Then that leaves a very heavy burden to the rest of us to be able to have to carry that person financially from a tax base. We have situations where if we can take those services and put them on the front side, especially with the opioid crisis, if we could get individuals into programs, that may redirect their life choices and, more importantly, make them healthy globally. Studies show that for every $1 that a community spends on services, we save $4 from the healthcare services and $7 from the criminal justice system. On any given day, if you've got a return like that, you would put all of your money in that. And that's what we have to do, is start seeing where we could better use our resources. And that's what I bring to the table.
Okay, well, that sounds great. So those programs, you know, I know Loudoun County is pretty wealthy.
Yes. Right?
So, I mean, compared to other counties, like Fairfax is wealthy, but, you know, Prince William and going further out, it, you know, depletes.
Right.
So, what type of programs do they have in place now, and like, how well will you be able to put more programs in for people that do have like drug addiction problems or alcohol problems or just, you know, like mental issues, you know, like schizophrenia where they had no control,
right?
Or they went off their meds and just, you know.
What we have right now, very new to Loudoun County, is a mental health docket. Okay. Which means we have cases that are recommended or referred to the courts as having a underlying mental health concern. The person then goes through that docket and may get services while they are a part of that docket, part of the court process. Same thing with the drug court. We're having a drug court that's restarting now in April. Okay. We had a drug court decade or so ago, which the current regime allowed to just go ahead and die off. And that was unfortunate because our opiate crisis has increased tremendously. We have deaths that are coming from it. Yeah. We have people who are committing crimes because of their addictions. We have people who are doing things within their families that are unsafe because of the addiction. As you said, you know, what do we do about that? So what we want to do is we need to have a community approach to this. We have our Community Services Board, which is a process by which you have the government services. We can get businesses to become involved as well. How can we fast track services so that somebody's not in a crisis before they can get services? Right.
Well, how can you get businesses to get involved with that? I mean, like, what would be an incentive for businesses unless they had one of their own being one of those people?
One of their own is a good way to do it, because we have, especially with the opiate crisis, drug crisis in the years past was always a low-income minority issue. It had that stigma to it that it was just never one of us, whoever what us may be. We're now seeing with the opiate crisis that it's hitting every family. It hits every socioeconomic structure. It hits every race. It hits every religion. No one is free from it. So now it is much more of an inside the family or inside your community concern. How we get businesses to be involved is by talking about what is the cost of the criminal justice system to our community. Okay. We had a case in Loudoun County about a year and a half ago. this guy ended up stealing tires in the Ashburn area. And what he would do is he would raise the cars, steal the tires, leave them on blocks, but take the tires and then sell them for his drug addiction. The prosecutor's office then charged him, and what they did is they stacked the charges so that they could go as heavy as they could possibly against him. So they hit him because he had 6 cars that he ended up removing the tires, hit him with 6 felony grand larceny charges, 6 grand larceny with the intent to sell, and then 6 destruction of property. They then bring that in front of the jury, and the jury recommends 132 years.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
For tires. To deal with the drug addiction.
Yeah, okay.
The judge imposes 17 active years for him to serve at $25,000 a year to house somebody for a drug addiction who committed offenses that are property crimes. That takes out $425,000 from our tax base. Do you know what we could buy for $425,000 in services?
Per person?
For himself, for 17
just
years.
Just for that person?
Just for that person,
Wow.
we have taken out of our tax coffers $425,000 to house somebody for stealing tires. That means we have fewer teachers, we have fewer counselors, we have fewer law enforcement officers, we have fewer everything that's providing a service. If we take that person and put him into a drug program, that might run $30,000.
Okay, in comparison, yeah.
In comparison. So if I take $30,000 and invest it in that person and they are successful, guess what? They return to the community, they can get a job.
But can they get a job? Because somebody with a record has a lot harder time to get a job, like you were explaining. You want to change that.
Yep, it's a harder, but if you're incarcerated, you don't have the opportunity to even get a job. So
Yeah.
at that point, all we're doing we're wasting our resources versus them coming into the community.
Right.
So that would be the other angle that we would have as far as working with the businesses. We need to help the businesses understand, especially with the low level of unemployment that we have, it's harder to find employees who don't have a criminal record.
Right.
It's hard to find somebody who fits perfectly the criteria that you're looking for. So if we keep shrinking the pool, you're not going to be able to have employees, and then therefore businesses will not be as successful. So we have to work with businesses to see what can we do to get proper re-entry programs so that people return to our community and are active and productive citizens.
But do you think there'll be like a stigmatism with that? Because if somebody's done a crime, then who knows what's gonna, you're talking about trust.
Yes,
You know
it
what I
is.
mean?
It's huge trust, but the issue becomes one of common sense.
Okay.
We don't have the ability as a community to allow that stigma to be that once you come back into our community, if you paid your debts to society, we're going to keep excising you. We can't.
Right.
Because then that means if I don't have an opportunity for you to get a job, who's going to pay for you?
Right.
It still comes back to the community.
That's right.
So I would rather take able-bodied individuals who can perform a service and be employed to find a way to have them re-enter into the community. So one, they see that the community's invested in them, and that reciprocates. Then they become invested in the community, and where the big win is, it decreases recidivism. Because if you don't have a job, you don't have a means of income, you don't have a place to call your own, you don't have a family support, you don't have a community support, what do you do?
Right.
You're right back into the cycle of
Yep.
the criminal justice system. We've got to break that cycle. It's
a big problem.
a big problem.
Everywhere.
It is. And this is the inherent unfairness of how the system is set up, is because we don't look at the long term. We don't tell our community what the long-term consequences are. We deal within a very myopic setup as far as what we're going to do is, well, we want to punish this person. There's nothing wrong with the consequences. There's nothing wrong with punishing. But what is the true cost?
Right.
And my platform is one that we want to share with the community. What is the true cost when we start incarcerating somebody? What is the true cost to convicting somebody and having those labels? If they understand those true costs and they make an informed decision, then that decision is much more valid.
Sure.
But if we don't give them all the information, in a certain way we are misleading and lying to the community as to what the cost is, because everybody's thinking, well, it doesn't affect me. It does affect you.
Right.
Because then that means you as a citizen are required to carry more of the tax consequences of the first responders, of the teachers, of the roads, everything else,
Right.
because there's fewer of us who are contributing. We don't have that luxury. Loudoun County is the most affluent county. However, we can't be financially or fiscally unwise because you don't get to retain that status because you're wasting money.
Right.
And we can't afford to waste.
Wow. So, so back to say that, let's say, for example, I have a friend, okay, or I know somebody who was incarcerated. They had a really bad drug problem. They're now doing better, but they got into a realm or a mode where they had access to free healthcare, free everything, and they didn't want to work.
Okay.
You know, and there's a lot of that mentality because they can like feed off of the system, and you know, and I don't know if they got to a point where they kind of felt like worthless. Nobody wants them anyway, so vicious. Not take advantage of the system? You know what I mean? So there's that vicious.
Based on my 25 years experience, and I've represented thousands of clients, I honestly have yet to find a client who wants to live off the system.
Okay.
I don't. Nobody wants to stay home and have no sense of worth. No one wants to stay at home and have no dignity. No one wants to walk into the street
Sure.
and have you look at them as being less than.
Sure.
Nobody wants to do that.
But they can end up. I think this person she now actually got a job, now works like part-time, but I mean, she's getting out of that, but I think maybe.
Does she have children?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that because she got to that, maybe that low point, you know what I mean, where maybe she felt, you know, she's got a horrible past, and just nobody, you know, how are they going to be good enough to be able to get a good job? They feel like they can't get a good job or a decent job to even get by.
Well, and this is why we as a community have to assist with that, because you're exactly right. When she comes out, nobody's looking at her as Miss Smith. They're looking at her as, oh, convicted felon with a drug issue.
Yep.
So automatically they're not going to give them the time of day. What is the message to her? She is not worth it. She goes out and applies, she doesn't get a job. She has to apply for some sort of substance from the government, then that makes her feel worse. So yes, you can break somebody to the point where they don't feel that they're worthy of it, so why should I even make that effort, because all I get is slapped down.
Right.
As a community, if we change that and we say, you know what, let's acknowledge where you are today. Today you're stable. Today, God willing, you've got your drug addiction under control, or you're managing it. That's what I have to do, is see where you are today. I have to deal with people where they are in that moment, because if I just leave you in the past in that negative box, I will never help you. And there's the saying, which is the rising tide lifts all. We have to raise each other, because if we don't, then what ends up happening is if your base becomes more heavier and laden, then you pull people down instead of pulling people up.
Right.
And we have to pull people up. And I would suggest to you that with her getting a part-time job now, I hope you see a confidence level building. And then when, God willing, that part-time job becomes a full-time job and she is self-sustaining, you'll see a lot more things come into place and be balanced for her. But we have to be around there to help support somebody, if not physically, financially, emotionally,
Right.
to be able to say, keep going on the right track, we got you.
Right. But here's another thing, okay, with her situation, is that the job that she gets, or she got, even if she had it full time, would not be enough to live in this area. You know what I mean? She's in Fairfax County.
Right.
Actually, she moved a little while ago, but for her salary, it's not enough, and that's the case for a lot of people.
But it is involved with the criminal justice system or not.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So you're dealing with a greater state issue as to what is a living wage.
Okay.
And that also, and the one thing about my platform that everybody has to understand is I'm very community focused. This has to be a community issue.
Right.
Because I, as an employer, if I take care of somebody and I help them become stable so that they can live in a community, this benefits everybody, because if they're living in a community, that means they're getting paid in the community. They're paying their taxes to the community.
Right.
They go to the grocery store, they're regenerating that money into our community. They go get gas, they're doing that, so that money then comes back and we keep recycling it within our community. When we have people who have to live outside our community to drive in an hour and a half, 2 hours, to be able to come and work and then they leave, what they're doing is they're providing that service, but then they're taking that income to another area. We lose the benefit of having that money and those taxes recycled.
Okay.
So where we have to be is we have to be fair to one another, because we have to provide living wages, have to provide a means for somebody to be able to survive and do better than survive, to be able to do that. But that becomes a lot greater than what the Commonwealth Attorney's Office is. That doesn't necessarily come into this function and role, but from a community perspective, it is all of our responsibility.
Okay. So for the idea that you have you seen any other communities in the United States do this?
This is something that is finally becoming a common conversation.
Okay.
This used to be something where if somebody said, we want to help people come into the community, be successful in the reentry program, or we want to help people avoid having to get into the criminal justice system. That was just some crazy liberal language about just being soft on crime. And it's not being soft on crime, it's being smart on crime. Right?
Right.
Now we have that this is a nationwide issue. The federal government just recently passed a law where they were talked about the mandatory minimums for certain drug cases that were nonviolent, where they used to give decades of incarceration periods.
Wow.
Decades.
Yeah.
And then they realized we're wasting a lot of money, and more importantly, not just the money, but we're wasting a lot of human contributions to our community.
Yeah.
We are literally wasting away our citizens. And that's not the right approach. As far as within Virginia, right now, this year in 2019, every Commonwealth Attorney's office is up for re-election. And you're hearing from people who have never before, like myself, been involved in politics. They didn't want to step into politics, who said,
Right.
I can't stand on the sidelines anymore because I've seen too much and nothing is changing, and I can't wait for someone else to do it, so I have to step in and do it. So in our Northern Virginia area, Arlington, Fairfax, Prince William, and Loudoun County are right now in the forefront of coming in and saying, let's make some significant changes within the criminal justice system so that we actually are successful as a community. Not just focusing on how many years you're able to give somebody for prosecution,
Sure.
but what is the full cost to the community.
Sure.
And people are listening. They are invested in saying, you're right, this is not right.
That making sense, yeah.
And then you're also seeing the systemic disparity that how minorities are treated, how the school to prison pipeline has always been a means of getting people kicked out of school, left with nothing, then they ended up, getting caught up in the juvenile justice system, and then they're part of the adult criminal process. And we just have to find ways to break those cycles,
yeah.
because that's the only way we get to be successful future-wise.
We only have a minute left.
Okay.
So thank you so much for coming, but
Thank
are you taking volunteers to help out with your campaign right now?
Yes.
And if so, where can people go to find out?
Our website is www.biberaj2019.com. Hello, my name is Buta Biberaj, and I'm running for Commonwealth Attorney for Loudoun County. When I talk to my family, friends, and neighbors about running for office, they ask me, what is the Commonwealth Attorney's position? 2, what makes you best suited for that position? And 3, how is it in Loudoun County's best interest for you to take on that responsibility? A Commonwealth Attorney is the prosecutor. In a lot of jurisdictions, it's known as the district attorney. That is the person who's in charge of an office who prosecutes the crimes, enforces the laws. Why am I best suited for this position? It's because of my vast experience and investment in Loudoun County. I have over 25 years experience as a trial lawyer. I have tried cases personally, from anywhere something as simple as a speeding matter to a double murder. Everything that falls in the middle, I have tried those cases. I've represented clients in making sure that they had the best opportunity to be able to have a fair trial within the system. I also served as a substitute judge for the 20th Judicial District. That means that I sat as a judge and heard trials and hearings and motions in the general district courts and the juvenile courts. I presided as the hearing officer, the trier of fact, for again yet additional types of matters. Things that are as simple as traffic infractions to yet again murder. The portions in between those seriousness of the crimes have also included robbery, malicious woundings, sexual assaults, and domestic family abuse. My experience as an attorney and as a judge is what I bring to the table. I have an opportunity to be able to have a perspective as to how the criminal justice system is not working at its best and how we can make it better. Why is it in the best interest of Loudoun County for me to be the Commonwealth Attorney? It's because of this reason. Not only do I have the better experience, the wider experience, I have been invested in Loudoun County since 1993. I am a business person. I had my practice opened up in 1993 in Leesburg. Since then, I've run a very successful practice. My practice has grown. We are now three partners within our practice that we serve our community. Continue to do so today on every level. Running a business has made me more knowledgeable as to what it will take to have a successful office, because it's about resources, financial resources and human resources. I know how to use the resources at their highest value and at their highest level. I also am invested in Loudoun County by having been a property owner since 1995. I live in Loudoun County. I don't just drive to work, do my 8 hours, and leave. No, I'm here and I'm rooted in it. I pay taxes, the taxes that are used to pay for our school, that are used to pay for our law enforcement, that are used to pay for fire and rescue, our mental health services. I contribute to that on a daily basis, both as a property owner, a consumer within the community, because I shop in Loudoun County as well. I use their resources, and also as a business investor, because I employ residents of Loudoun County who also are invested in our community. The best interests of Loudoun County are served by someone who is invested in their best interest, not somebody who's just here to check a box and say that they're doing a job. The time has changed. We're not interested in having that anymore. We want people who are going to look at the big picture. For the last 5 years, I have offered a program through the Loudoun County Bar Association, as well as my law firm, the Loudoun Lawyers, called Street Law. That has been in conjunction with the administrative staff over at Douglas School. And what we do is we collect and we invite attorneys to come and speak to the children, and literally for a period of about 1 to 2 hours, they answer the questions that any of the students have. That is an opportunity for the students to see and hear from a real practitioner what it's all about. I have been on boards which deal with nonprofits, specifically A Advantage for Children. What we do is we provide services, financial need, and articles of clothing to people who are in the immediate need on a very local level. That's what we do to help the people around us. I'm asking you, as a fellow Loudoun County resident, as an investor in Loudoun County, as a person who has integrity and the wherewithal to understand the importance of this position, to vote for me on November 5th. On November 5th, you will be given the opportunity to make changes to our criminal justice system by making me Loudoun County Commonwealth's attorney. You may visit our website, which is www.biberaj2019.com. The spelling is BIBERAJ2019.com. Thank you.